Hello folks, my name is Mark. This is Why Hit the World. How you guys doing? I do not like racism, right? In fact, the very first video I ever made on this channel was about racism. In fact, I think probably the majority of videos that I've made are about racism because I really think that racism is one of the things that holds us back as a species. You know, our tendency to separate people and judge people based on their skin color and where they're from and stereotypes that have no basis in fucking reality, stuff like that, right? So it's one of the things that motivates me to be politically active. And, it's very easy to identify it, especially when it comes, the overt kind that comes from the right wing and the alt-right people. It's very easy to see a bunch of assholes dressed up in white sheets burning a cross somewhere and call that out for what it is. Not so easy when it comes from the left. Okay. And, there are examples of racism on the left that, comes from even from people who are very, very far left. The people who would consider themselves to be anti-racist. They also have, expressions of racism. It just happens to be against white people a lot. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. We have a tendency on the left to discount the opinions of white people specifically. Now, hear me out, okay? Because some people are just going to instantly stand up and call me a racist for even saying this, but I don't give a fuck. Okay. Here's what I mean. Okay, so for a little while now, maybe the last 10 years or so, probably right around the beginning of the Obama era, there's been a tendency on the left for white people to kind of step back a little bit and to let people of color take the lead when it comes to the discussion of racism, Black Lives Matter, stuff like that, and you'll kind of even see it in the language that gets used. White people are referred to as allies, right? They're not the leaders of the movement. They're the allies. They can come too, but it's really, we're doing this and then they can come too. That's what an ally is. An ally is someone who's separate from you, right? Who contributes to your cause and, someone that you can depend on, but is not the leader, is not part of you, right? Yeah, you start to see that a lot. And here's the problem is that when, people who have differing ideas, right, when it comes to the movement and how it should be executed and what the messaging should be, stuff like that, it becomes very easy to discount their opinions based on their skin color. That being, shut up, white boy. Right. Another thing they'll say is, woke white people. You'll hear that from people. Like, I just had a discussion with a guy on Reddit who was blaming Asian racism on white people, saying that, in Asia and in China and Japan and stuff like that, they have all the same stereotypes about minorities and it all comes from Western culture, right? And it's like, you might have noticed, I'm not exactly white. I'm actually part Asian, right? And it just so happens that, no, that's not exactly how that developed. For example, in Asia, there's a hell of a lot of racism. In fact, you see, even among other Asians, people in China who are racist against people from Cambodia and Thailand and Korea, and people in Japan. Japan has a very elitist attitude when it comes to other Asians. In fact, there's examples from pre-World War II of anime where other Asians are depicted as monkeys and stuff like that. And, other minorities, black people get zero respect in Japan, right? There'll be places that'll just won't let black people in at all. In fact, there's places that won't let white people in. It'll say, there'll be signs, no Gaijins allowed. A Gaijin is someone who's a foreigner, someone who's not Japanese, And it's just so, in Asia, they have a very nationalistic attitude when it comes to racism. And that's just an example right there of how it's different you know, depending on what society you're in, right? And it just, you know, in America, the people who are, you know, the United States, people who are the most affected by racism are people of color, who are non-whites, you know. Black people getting it the worst, probably, you know, Latinos not that far behind, and then other races, right? And it just so happens Asians in America, not so bad. You know, there's stereotypes about Asians and stuff like that, but the stereotypes are like they're smart, right? They work hard, that kind of thing. You know, those can be negative stereotypes as well, and they can have effects in society also, you know, in particular college admissions, you know. But it's not as blood, you know, cut and dry as people would like to think, you know. I mean, just think about during the civil rights era. Civil rights was not something that was accomplished only by black people. You know, there were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of white people who joined in the struggle and also went on marches with them. You know, watch those old those old videos of Martin Luther King Jr. giving speeches and look in the crowds there, man. It's not all black people. You know, there's plenty of white people too. You know, plenty of white people and Jewish people and every, you know, race and ethnicity and religion who were beaten and murdered in some cases in support of civil rights as well. You know, and that's just an example. It's like, well, were those people, you know, relegated to the back, right? Were they considered allies during that time, or were they considered a genuine part of the movement? You know, and it just seems to me that it's the wrong way to go when someone is standing right next to you and believes in your cause and wants to help you, that you can just turn around and discount everything that he wants to say, you know, because he's not the correct skin color, right? That is an example, that is an expression of racism as well. And, you know, it may not be as harmful. It may even be justified according to some people. You know, some people don't want any white people at all involved in anti-racist movements, right? For whatever reason. That's the wrong way to go. And I really think that it's wrong to discount them. And I think that's the wrong attitude to have. And if you're one of these people that sits, you know, it sits there and says you're a fragile white Redditor, or, you know, shut up, there's no such thing as woke white people. Or if you're one of these people that says, you know, every person out there, every white person is racist, end of story. If you're one of these people, then you're part of the problem. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping the cause by, you know, kicking these people out, by keeping them separate, by discounting what they want to say and not accepting their help, right? Because we're all in this together. You know, I'm half white. I'm half Asian, okay? So does that mean I only get to half have an opinion? Does half of my opinion count, right? Does, you know, am I only half racist? If all white people are racist, am I only half racist? I mean, it's ridiculous to even think about it. You're doing yourself a disservice by having these attitudes. And, you know, the whole idea behind the anti-racist movement is that we're all supposed to be equal. We're all supposed to have, you know, equal access to things like education and, you know, healthcare, shit like that. And you're not supposed to just discount what somebody says because of their skin color. If you're doing that, you're part of the problem. Anyway, that's all I got, folks. Adios.